I'm Teen Librarian Alejandria, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make the Teens to Go project, Animal Crossing Fossil Hunt. We're going to make really cute plush fossils. Okay, let's begin. Your box will come with a couple materials. First of all, they'll have 2 templates to help you cut your shapes. They'll come with 2 pieces of felt, blue felt, and 1 piece of white felt, a bunch of fluff, and they'll come with blue and white thread. Your box will also come with a couple of needles. The first is a sewing needle and the other 2 are pins. Please make sure these go in a safe place when you're not using them. The only thing you need that isn't in the box is a pair of scissors. Grab your 2 pieces of blue felt and stack them on top of each other. Make sure you've got your scissors nearby because you're going to be cutting out this pattern. Go ahead and just use your pins and pin them straight onto the fabric. If you've got a good pair of scissors, you can probably stack them like this. If you have a not so great pair of scissors, you might want to cut them each individually, but the nice thing about stacking them on top of each other is that it makes sure that they're all cut the same. Now you're just going to cut along the black line. Take out the pins. If you were able to stack your pieces of felt, then you have 2 already cut up. If you did not, then you're just going to have to repeat the process with the other piece of blue felt. Also, go ahead and trim any imperfections. Cut out the next template on the white felt. You actually have 3 different pieces that you have to cut out on the white felt. So the first is this very small star, and then there's another somewhat star shape, and then you've got that big kind of coil that's going to be your fossil. Once you have it cut out, just go ahead and put it off to the side and cut out your remaining pieces. And go ahead and make sure that you put those pins back onto the note card or somewhere else where they can be stored safely. Grab your 2 pieces of blue felt and put them together so that they match. And then take your white pieces of felt and arrange them somewhat similar to this. If you want them to be a little bit different, you can go ahead and do that, but we've decided to arrange them like they look in the game. Now it's time to start sewing. Go ahead and take the top layer of your blue felt that you've arranged the white pieces on and put the other one to the side. I'm going to start by sewing the biggest piece on. Go ahead and double thread your needle with the white thread. Double threading means you're going to put your thread through the eye of your needle and then you're going to pull one side down until it meets the other. And then you're going to knot those 2 ends together. And you're going to go ahead and double knot them, so you're going to knot them a second time as well, so you make a little bit of a bigger knot. In your box you would have received this thing of thread. Now this is several arm lengths long thread, So go ahead and just trim off as much as you need just to thread your needle. I would recommend no longer than 1 arm length. Start by sewing the biggest white piece onto one of your blue felt pieces. There's some extra detail work that you can do once you get to the end by coming up and doing a spiral. So I recommend that you actually start your stitch right here and go around this way. We're going to use a running stitch. Start by putting your needle in through the back of the felt so that it comes up just right about where you want it. So we want it kind of right at this little indent. And go ahead and pull all the way through. Your string might become a little tangled, but just stop and pull that until your knot kind of hits the end of your fabric on the back. And then go ahead and put your needle back down. Pull that until you make your first stitch, which will look just like that. And repeat the process by putting your needle back up through the back of your felt, and back down. You're going to do this all the way around the white border of your piece. You want to make sure that your stitches are relatively the same length. I know I said that earlier, when you're first threading your needle, make sure that you're not using more than an arm's length of thread. Especially if you're new to sewing, make sure that your thread isn't terribly long, otherwise it's going to be a lot harder to work with. You are going to, however, probably need to rethread your needle if you run out of string before you get to the end, which isn't a big problem, and it will actually give you some practice threading your needle and starting and stopping a stitch. We're coming to the part of our stitch where we're going to have the option to put some spiral detail onto our fossil shape here. So far we've just been following along the edge of our white shape. However, for the detail, we're going to kind of have to go off and eyeball a spiral shape on our own. Normally when you're doing the stitch, when you come back to where you started your stitch, which is we're kind of reaching that indent part where we started, you would tie off your thread on the back. However, we're going to go up and create a spiral stitch like this. Instead of tying off on the back, I'm going to go up and continue my running stitch, and I'm going to continue the running stitch in a spiral pattern. Once you've reached your final stitch in your spiral shape, and oops, I've got a little tangle, so I'm just going to neatly and gently pull that out. Once you reach your final stitch, your needle and your thread should be on the back side. This is the side that can be a little bit messy because you're not going to see it. And tie a knot. I usually leave the needle on my thread when I'm tying my knot because it makes it a lot easier. And my tip is to put my finger here and gently pull that knot. Your shape is now on there nice and secure. So go ahead and duplicate this process with your two smaller shapes. Use the running stitch to sew them in place, but for these two you're not going to have to do any special spiral detail or anything like that, just sew them around the edge. Next you're going to sew these two pieces together using what's called a blanket stitch. You're going to sew the blanket stitch around your project with blue thread. However, I am going to show you how to sew this using this kind of bright pink thread. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of hard to see and you might not understand the tutorial as well. There are several ways to do a blanket stitch, but we're going to use the ones that are included in the box because they're a little simpler. Our blanket stitch is going to start here and go around this way. We're going to stop right here. So to start our blanket stitch, we're going to stick our needle through both pieces of blue felt. You want it in a little bit, but you don't want it to be going through the white fabric as well. And pull it until your knot touches the back. Like I said, there's a couple of different ways to do a blanket stitch, so there are a couple ways where you can hide the knot inside, but we're doing this way because it's just a little bit simpler to explain. Next, take your needle and push it down through both pieces of felt, just a little bit away from where it came through the first time. Pull that all the way through until you have just a little bit of a loop. And then go ahead and put your needle through that loop and just pull until your stitch gets tight. And this is your first blanket stitch. Next, you want to push your needle up through the back of your felt again. And you want your stitches to be an equal distance apart, not too far apart and not too close. Pull it until you have kind of a little loop again, and just put your needle through and pull it. So this is kind of going to be what you're going to do in order to continue your stitch all the way around. Again, put it through the back, pull through until you have somewhat of a loop left, just enough space to push your needle through, and that'll form your stitch. Keep doing this all the way around until you end up about an inch from where you started, or until you run out of thread. And I'll show you what to do if you do run out of thread before you reach the end. For the sake of time, we're going to speed this up a little. Okay, so as you can see, I'm running out of thread, so we're gonna actually need to change our needle. And for other stitches, it's a little bit easier. For the blanket stitch, it's a little more complex. We're just a little bit short of where I'd like to add fluff, so we need to change our thread. As you can see, I will not have enough thread to make it all the way to the end, so it will need to be changed, and that's what we're going to do right now. To change it, we're going to go ahead and take our needle, and we're actually going to go the way we came. So we're going to just put it through that stitch. The first one, we're going to put it through the next stitch as well. We're going to do this till we've reached about 4 stitches in. Now that we've reached 4 stitches in, we're going to go ahead and make a knot. It's going to be really tiny and you won't be able to see it hardly. So just push your needle through again and then push it through the little loop that forms. Now I probably should have changed my thread a little bit earlier because I don't have a whole lot of string left and it's making it a little bit hard to get through. Once you've done your knot, continue a couple more stitches back in. So I'm just going to do a couple right here. I don't have a whole lot of thread left on my needle, so I'm probably not going to go a whole lot more, but just like 3 or 4 more stitches would be great. And then once you've done that, you're going to go ahead and take your scissors and just carefully trim right there. You can trim that down even a little bit more. Sorry, I'm kind of doing this a little bit off camera. Once you've rethreaded your needle, we're going to go ahead and we're going to have to reinsert our needle. So I'm actually going to do this by going in through the inside of my 2 felt layers. So I'm going to just find and pick the same spot where my last stitch is going through in the back. I'm going to put my needle through there. I'm just going to pull all the way through, and this is actually going to hide the knot from the tail end. Once you have your knot hidden, you're going to take your needle and you're going to go through the part of the thread that's just going along the top on the last stitch that you did. Pull that all the way through until your string isn't kind of hanging out there. From here, we're just going to continue our stitch the same way we've been doing. Your needle's going to come in through the back 2 layers. You're going to pull that all the way through until you get like a little loop going on. And you're going to take your needle, put it through the loop, and pull through. And just keep doing this until you've got like maybe an inch of an opening, because we need to add our fluff. Okay, we've now come to where we've got to stop and add our fluff. So just open up that opening a little bit and go ahead and grab your fluff. And you're not going to add it all at one time, you're just going to kind of tear off little pieces of it and start putting them in. If you have something handy like, oh, I don't know, say a light up lightsaber chopstick, you can use that to kind of help you push the fluff into the like corners, because you really do want to kind of fill all the corners of your fossil. So I'm just going to kind of keep adding little pieces, little by little. And eventually I'll get to the point where I like the size of the fossil. Okay, so I've pretty much got as much as I want in. I'm just going to go ahead and take my lightsaber or whatever you have that's kind of pointy, and I'm going to fill all those little kind of nooks and crannies and kind of distribute the fluff a little bit more evenly until it's what I want it to look like, or until I run out of fluff. Okay, perfect. Don't forget to power down your lightsabers. And now that I've got as much fluff as I'd like, we just need to continue with our blanket stitch. It's going to be just the same as we did before until we reach the last stitch. Okay, we're coming to our last stitch, so now we've just got to finish it off. I just want to pause here to say that there are several different ways to do the blanket stitch, and if this isn't the way you like, you are welcome to look up some other videos on how to do the blanket stitch and find if one of the other ways works better for you. To finish off our blanket stitch, we're going to take our needle and put it through that front loop of the stitch and pull through. Flip your fossil over and find the spot where your knot is on the back from where you started. Take your needle and put it through close to or exactly where the hole where the knot is. So it might take you a couple seconds to try and find out where that is exactly. Push it through carefully like this, and then pull your thread. Take your needle and push it down close to, but not exactly where you just came through, so that your thread goes close to where the original knot came through, and then you're basically done. You just have to tie a double knot and do it again. Now this process isn't as pretty as the one where you hide the knot inside of your plush, but it's a good way to kind of learn and to start. And yours won't show up quite as much because you'll be using blue thread instead of this bright pink thread. And your plush Animal Crossing fossil will be nice and squishy.